And so now I'm going to take you through the first decan of Leo. And this, as the sun traverses through this section of the sky, through our celestial lion, we find that we are associating this with the strength card in our tarot deck. And here we get a sense of that instinctual power. The idea of being driven and reactive and raw and passionate. And we get this sense from our lion. There is a virility here, a sexual potency. And the maiden here, or the goddess, is subduing this lion. She is able to bring it under her own power, under her own force. She is taking control of it. And we also sense with our lion and our Leo energy the idea of kingship, the idea of regal, the being of a regal nature, and this idea of strength beyond all. We know that the lion is the strongest of the beasts. And here we have the idea that this strength of the beast can be overcome. And what's interesting, I find here with our card depicting a maiden subduing her lion, this isn't the heroic depiction of subduing the wild nature, the wilder aspects of ourself, but it's perhaps a more mature explanation. We have the feminine here, being able to control the power with a sense of sovereignty and ruling over the power rather than seeking to destroy it. So perhaps this is a higher version of that, as I said, heroic battle that we do see depicted in the myth that describes Leo in the sky, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. So our strength card, we also see this infinity sign above her head. It's almost as if this woman has become the lion. The two become one, the bringing together of the separate entities into one united, powerful force. And what happens is that her inner nature must be completely in control in order to exercise this restraint over this ferocious lion. And she's holding its jaws open, an idea of exposing the Godhead. Again, a very potent symbol here, sexual symbol here, but referring to the omnipotence, the omniscience of the source of all creation. She's exposing that at this time. Such is the power she's able to wield. So she's directing this force. Now, what happens when we have our lion, our Leo, confronted with the world card? The world card is Saturn. So we describe this first decan of Leo as Saturn in Leo. And with Saturn comes restriction. Saturn compresses this strength, this irrepressible force, this passionate nature. We get the idea of instinct being contained, desire is being disciplined, the beast is being tamed. But we also get, and we'll see this now, in the actual card that's used, this minor arcana, the pip card that's used to depict Saturn in Leo, our first decan of Leo card. And what we see here is young men. We get that sense of the virility, the sexual drive and the power here between them. But it's almost bursting out. It's trying to get free. It doesn't want to be restrained. And Saturn is forcing the issue. And so what we see is like an eruption, like a boisterous, noisy, instinctive force that comes to play in this card. It's dynamic. There is energy here. There is play. There is banter. It doesn't look like anything too serious. And yet we do recognize that perhaps this is mirroring the sultry, hot days that we get at this time of year, the sheer heat, known as the dog days. So if we look at the myth of Cybele as the overarching myth for our three decans, I'd like to just talk about the fact that in this, she is repressing her lions. Cybele was always depicted with lions at her side, as if she had them under her control, under her dominion. Occasionally, she was actually riding in a chariot drawn by lions. She has this wild side, and I think this is what's captivated here in our Five of Wands minor arcana that depicts this first decan. And so Cybele here is the person who is taking control, subduing that wild nature. And we see that this irrepressible force that's really starting to build up here is going to take the form of a young man that she falls in love with. His name was Attis. And I'll leave the myth there with this idea of this struggle and this passion and this life force that we see very much in this card. And I'm going to talk about the myth that I'm going to actually use now to depict our first decan of Leo. And that myth is the myth of Canis Major, the big dog in the sky, our celestial dog. And the brightest star in Canis Major, or Canis Major, is Sirius. And Sirius is the brightest star in our sky from Earth. And Sirius appears in the summer just before the sun rises, and 20 days before this and 20 days after Sirius emerges in this way, they're referred to as the dog days, because of course we have our Canis Major rising up at this time with Sirius as its brightest star. And I want to talk about the myth of Laelaps. He was the dog who never failed to catch his prey. So we have this idea of this mythical dog in our Canis Major. But we also have the Tiamessian fox. The Tiamessian fox was the prey that was destined to never be caught. So what happens when you line up the celestial dog with the celestial fox, the prey that's always going to get away, and yet the dog that never fails to catch its prey? We have this kind of eternal motion going on here. So how did Zeus bring this to a resolution? Well, he eternalized the tension instead of resolving it. He put the two of them into the sky. So we have the Tiamessian fox, destined never to be caught, being chased eternally by Canis Major, Laelaps, the dog who never fails to catch its prey. The two of them caught in this eternal tension, it's a perpetual motion, a permanent paradox, the perfect pursuit and the impossible escape. And so where is this within you? This irrepressible life force, and yet the need to contain it. And here, this lemniscate, the infinity sign, is here to remind you that perhaps it is a perpetual dance. So through these next 10 days, when we have Saturn compressing our strength, restraining our passion, where can you see, instead of fighting and struggling internally, where can you decide that these youths here, with all their exuberance, all of their passion and energy, instead of fighting each other, where could they use it to build something? So where can you, within yourself, instead of battling within, where can you resolve to drive that force and direct that force, just like Cybele with her lions, driving her chariot, directing that pure, raw life force, passion and energy? Have a wonderful day.